I had to laugh at my husband that night, but his reaction broke us apart. It was a normal day in our little town. Nothing really ever happened here, and so we all appreciated when things changed. It didn't change for the better though. It changed for the worst when we got a new neighbor. He was an old man who seemed to have come from the past. When we asked him about his age, he just gave us a strange look and said, "I'm old enough to be your father." Of course, everyone laughed, but it was the only time we'd seen him. The rest of the time he kept to himself. I lived here all my life until they took everything from me and shoved me into a nursing home. He stood up abruptly, his face pale and expressionless. "It's getting late. We should go," he said to me. I could tell he was upset, but I didn't understand why. I turned back to Williams, wanting to apologize for my husband's rudeness, but he was already gone. I could sense the pain and resentment in his voice. Who could have done such a thing to him? Was he talking about his family or perhaps friends? "Why were you so rude to him? He's our neighbor. Don't you think we should be kind?" My husband didn't respond for a moment. He seemed lost in thought. He was pacing back and forth, his face flushed with anger. I couldn't help but smile at her innocence. But, before I could respond, my husband spoke up. "That's enough. You're not big enough to go anywhere alone. How could you yell at our innocent child like that? She didn't do anything wrong." He remained silent for a moment, staring ahead. "I'm sorry, Sarah. It's just that I have a lot of stress at work. I don't want to take it out on you or Emily, but sometimes it just happens. Can I help you, Mr. Williams?" he asked, his tone cold and unfriendly. "Mr. Williams," I called out, "how did you end up in that nursing home? Did they mistreat you?" "They did everything they could to take away my dignity, my independence, and ultimately, my sanity," he whispered, his eyes distant and filled with pain. There was a hint of sadness in my voice. I wanted to know more about the place where Williams had suffered. As I read through the reviews and complaints, my blood boiled. The stories of neglect, abuse, and misery were heartbreaking. I could feel the tension between them, and I wasn't sure why. He realized that honesty and transparency were crucial for a healthy relationship. We worked through his trust issues and eventually renewed our wedding vows, promising to always be there for each other, no matter what. William seemed unfazed by my husband's hostility. "I was just leaving. It was nice seeing you and your family, especially the little one." "I agree, Sarah. We need to do something about this. These stories are appalling. Let's find a way to bring those responsible to justice." They tried to deny everything, but the truth was clear. The staff had been abusing and neglecting the elderly residents, including Williams. "She looks like she takes after her mother." "Beautiful," he said with a gentle smile. We were determined to expose the truth about the nursing home. "Do you want to disappoint your mother and me?" I quickly knelt down next to my daughter, wiping away her tears. "It's okay, sweet. Daddy's just worried about you." Finally, he looked at me, his eyes filled with a sadness that broke my heart. One evening, my husband and I were having dinner outside. Sure, she was mature for her age, but my husband was being too harsh. Before I could intervene, he stormed out of the house. Williams was moved to a better facility where he received the care and respect he deserved. I sighed, feeling helpless and angry at his behavior. I couldn't help but smile as I watched her laughter echoed through the park. It was a beautiful day and I felt grateful to have my husband and daughter by my side. I rushed to the living room to see what had happened. To my horror, my husband was yelling at our daughter, "If you're too stressed, maybe you should take a break and spend some time with us. We haven't had a proper family day in ages." He looked at me for a moment, then nodded slowly. "You're right, Sarah. I'm sorry. I'll try to be a better husband and father." She was sitting on the floor with tears streaming down her face. I couldn't bear to hear more because it brought back to many bad memories. "She certainly looks happy." I turned around to see Mr. Williams standing there with a faint smile on his wrinkled face. "Mr. Williams, what are you doing here?" I asked. He gestured towards Emily. "Just admiring the beauty of youth and joy. Reminds me of a time when life seemed endless and happiness was easy to find," he said, his voice filled with longing. I reached out to touch his arm, trying to comfort him, but he pulled away slightly. I knew it was a sensitive subject for him, but the incident with Mr. Williams stayed with me. I could unshake off the feeling that there was more to the old man than met the eye. "I know you don't mean to, but you always push me away whenever I try to get close to you. Our little girl was with her grandmother for the weekend. I know you only want the best for me, and for us. It's just that sometimes the past can be a heavy burden to carry. And so, our dinner table was just us two. But when we stepped out of our home, we saw Mr. Williams across the street eating alone. My husband sat opposite me, and we tried making conversation. Do you plan on leaving soon, Mr. Williams?" he asked. The old man turned his gaze towards my husband and said, I left already long ago." My husband and I exchanged confused glances. What did he mean? Had he been living somewhere else until now? I don't remember exactly what I said, but I think it was something about the weather. Williams responded, "The weather is always dreary in this wretched town. I can't wait to leave." I felt a chill run down my spine. Why did he sound like he hated living here? Did he want to go back to wherever he came from? He looked kind of lonely, so I suggested we walk over and talk to him. My husband didn't seem too excited about it, but he didn't say anything. He just nodded and stood up. When we approached him, I extended my hand and introduced myself. "Hi there, Mrs. Williams," I said. "I'm your neighbor. Mind if we join you?" He looked at me, then at my husband, and finally spoke. His voice sounded like dry leaves crunching underfoot. "You may call me Williams," he replied, looking away. We were taken aback by his odd response, but I chose to ignore it and sit down next to him. My husband cleared his throat, seemingly uncomfortable with the man's tone. Williams continued, his eyes fixed on some distant point in front of him. "I was born in this house." I wanted to ask more questions, but my husband interrupted. As we walked home, I couldn't help but question my husband's behavior. He began speaking in a low voice. His story reminded me of my own past, of the mistakes I made and the pain I caused others. For a moment, my husband didn't reply. Then he slowly nodded. "I'm sorry, Sarah, you're right." After that conversation, I never pushed him to talk about his past again. A few weeks later, I was washing dishes in the kitchen when I heard my husband's voice rising in anger. "Why do you always disobey me? Don't you understand how dangerous it is to go outside alone? What if someone had hurt you?" She looked up at me with tearful eyes. "But I'm big now, Mommy. I can take care of myself." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My daughter was only 7 years old. Later that day, after our daughter had fallen asleep, I confronted my husband. "That was uncalled for. Well, I won't tolerate you treating my daughter that way." And so we decided to have a family day. We went to the park and watched Emily play on the swings. Suddenly, I heard a familiar voice behind me. Before I could respond, my husband stood up abruptly. As Williams turned to leave, I couldn't resist asking him a question that had been on my mind. He paused, his shoulders slumping slightly as if burdened by the weight of his memories. That night, I couldn't sleep. Williams's words echoed in my mind, and I found myself researching nursing homes online. Determined to help Williams, I woke my husband up and told him about my findings. He listened intently, his face grave with concern. We spent the next few days gathering evidence, reaching out to lawyers, and preparing for action. On the day of the meeting, we confronted the nursing home staff with the evidence we had gathered. In the end, the nursing home was shut down, and the staff were arrested. As for my husband, he became more open and affectionate towards me after that experience.